Tepu, this is Kasankma Keperu and Namaste. And today I'd like to talk to you about how to travel or how to travel through time or how to time travel. Now, this is a really important subject, and I know many of you watching this video are going to be like, oh, well, is this a joke? Is it just being like sensational? But no, it's true. I'm going to reveal a technique that will allow you to travel through time. But before I do that, I want to get into the details of how we live in this Western society, or this matrix which has programmed and conditioned us to believe that anything that has to do with ancient cultures or New Age or the paranormal is to be laughed at or discarded. And this is a form of brainwashing and mind control, because it doesn't have us look at the alternate ways in which we can live our life, the way we can basically go through the fork in the road, take a different path, and that path being what our ancient ancestors, the way of life they meant us to live. Because what you see around us in terms of this technological world, and everything looks advanced, and but the morality of the people is such that the world is falling apart, because yes, we have buildings, we have iPhones, we have computers, but we have the most corrupt leaders, we have wars, and religions that seek to control people through dogma, So I want you to understand that what we have to start doing is looking back to our ancestors for the truth of existence. Now, the ruling elite, those individuals who are in control of the banking institutions, who control the wealth of this planet, are into occult magic, black magic. They do practice these things, but the ironic part about it is they don't want you to practice them. So what they do is, well, what they did was they created these religions: Judaism, Christianity, Catholicism, and Islam, and all of them, which basically are saying the same thing. Basically, you have to read from a book to get in tune with the divine creator of all, or you have to go through an intermediary, a priest or minister, in order to get guidance and wisdom, which is not true. Our ancient ancestors in Africa and China, specifically, I'm going to talk about Egypt, focus more so on empowering individuals. You were taught how to elevate yourself to become God man, God woman, and to use the powers that you had within. And part of those powers was the ability to travel through time and space. But this information was lost to us when the ruling elite was chiefly responsible for getting Egypt to fall, getting Africa to fall, because that was, if you know the city of Alexandria, the library there contained the wealth of knowledge of the world. So the ruling elite had to destroy that, and through the librarian Hypatia, they skinned her alive, they burned her, and then they burned all the scrolls within the library to keep the knowledge out of the people. And then, as you know, as time went on, we went through a dark age. And we're still in the dark age because we believe things that are only physical. We cannot fathom or conceive of things that are non-physical. So when we start to have discussions, or we see programs on TVs talking about UFO, ghosts, spirits, rituals to control physical matter, or metaphysical stuff, we laugh, we take it as a joke, but that's the sign of the programming that we lived in. When we went through the 9/11 experience, the idea was that they wanted to create an atmosphere so that anyone even questioning that the government could have been involved in that was seen as unpatriotic and crazy, basically, So this is the control system that we're dealing with in this matrix. And one of the chief means that they use as a control mechanism is other people, your peers. Your peers keep you in check by ostracizing you, by ridiculing you. You can see this in any major university. Any of the so-called scholars who writes paper, if they were to write papers on something that was totally against what was authorized, they would immediately be cast out, made fun of, because they have to stick to the norm, the traditional stuff. So we know that what we are a part of, what we learn, is sensory input. Everything that you can see, hear, feel, taste is real. Anything outside of that is not real. And so it doesn't catalog things like wisdom, higher knowledge, spirit communication, astral projection. These things are just laughable. But this is how you know where the majority of people on the planet are controlled by the matrix. And one of the chief institutions to do that is religious churches and mosques, because what they want to do is to have you believe that to live your life, you have to get information from a book, and that book itself will tell you everything you need to do to live your life. But never are you taught that you can go within to travel to the inner planes, to the Akashic records, and pull out knowledge that spans tens of thousands of years, millions of years. Now science is realizing that our DNA has stored history. You know, they did these tests where they found that African Americans who you know, have have gone through their family lineage, have gone through slavery, still retain that information in our DNA. You know, so let's keep that in mind as I go through this whole idea and process on time travel, you know, because it is a reality. It is not something that's science fiction. It's not something that's laughable. But what you'll find that they have done on the internet in the forums is that you have these agents of our government, of the global elite, who go into these forums, who will make Hollywood movies to put out disinformation about how time travel works. So you only see it in one perspective, and that basically that perspective can't happen, can't really work. So they dismiss the fact and call it science fiction. So there's not a possibility of us traveling through time. You know, it's just not going to happen. Now, let me put it to you this way. I've talked about in previous videos, and I often repeat this, that there are two modes of thinking. There's a left brain and a right brain. The left brain is linear. The right brain is nonlinear. The left brain is your conscious mind, your waking self, your awake self, and the right brain is the subconscious mind. Now, because we're polarized in the left brain thinking, which is what the global elite wants to do, because they only want you to think about things in terms of concrete things. They don't want you to understand that you have God powers. And to access those God powers, you have to go through the right brain or integrated brain thinking. So, so they put out the information that to get you in all the learning institutions to focus on left brain schooling, left brain education, and they elevate the left brain. And all the left brain knows how to do is regurgitate information. It can just memorize things. And many times you are awarded accolades and given praises and bestowed your diplomas and PhDs and all that based on the fact of how well you regurgitate information. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have wisdom and knowledge. You know the information. It's just who's the best at reciting it, feeding it back to the professors or the academy or the scholars or the board or whatever. You know, that's the basis of our Western society. It's not based on Tahuti or thought wisdom. It is based on civic information, not wisdom. Okay, so when we look at the fact that most of our science, our medicine, our entertainment is based on left brain, we then only see things as part of the concrete. So when I say time travel, you think of, Back to the Future, DeLorean motor car, or, you know, or Terminator getting into a machine and traveling back in time, or H.G. Wells, a time machine, gotta have a machine. But never do you think or allow yourself to think that time travel could be possible through the spirit within you, that you don't have to physically, your physical body doesn't have to travel through time. Your spirit can, because the reality is who you are is consciousness. The vehicle, the physical being, the Geb, is not who you are. It is a construct. It is basically a holographic projection that you make in order to interact with the world. That's all it is. But the truth of your being is that your consciousness symbolized by the all-seeing eye, which is Osiris or Osiris, to let you know that symbol the Egyptians gave us was to let you know who you are. Know thyself as consciousness, having a fourth dimensional experience. Now, to go over this process of traveling through time, I have to first tell you that this actually happened to me back in 2015, and it was a most disturbing event, because otherwise I would never have known that it was a reality, that this could happen, that you could project your consciousness into the future, you know? So the idea behind this is that the right brain is the bridge or the stargate to nonlinear space-time. So you know that your consciousness is immaterial, and that you are not located in any one point in space and time. Your consciousness has the quality of non-locality. So you can't pinpoint it. You can't say it exists here, here, there, or wherever. It's everywhere. Okay? It can go to anywhere. And the other thing we have to keep in mind while we're on this is that when we start looking at things like traveling in a car or a DeLorean or time machine, that's a left brain concept, because it only thinks in terms of concrete. It cannot think in terms of synthesis. It cannot think abstractly. So it only can postulate that, oh, well, you'll need a lot of energy, you'll need power, you know, it's power, and you need a machine that can do it, and you need these calculations, and that's not true. So our ancient ancestors used, you know, herbs to go into alternate state of consciousness to do astral projection and travel. Some were using ayahuasca, DMT, things of that nature. But what I'm going to reveal to you, the big secret, doesn't require any of those herbs or those drugs, and they're natural. But it does take some work to be able to do this, all right? So let me give you the story of how it happened to me. I had moved, I was living in a different part of town. It was 2015. And I distinctly remember at one point, I was waiting for Christmas, and I had some plans, right? And before I knew it, Christmas had passed, and I was already into, I think it was Easter, right? So I was doing some shopping and living my life day by day. And then suddenly, my conscious was withdrawn from Easter to pre-Christmas. And when that happened, I was startled, because I was shooken up. I didn't know where I was or what was going on. And at that point I realized, I said, wait a minute, Christmas had already passed. Why am I here? Why is it yet to come? And that's when I put everything together. I called people, because I was so disoriented, didn't know what was going on, and found out that I had traveled into the future. My consciousness had traveled into the future. So how does this work exactly? Well, the technique that I used to do that, and it was involuntary. It wasn't, I was trying to do this, I was not aware that this happened, is that when you have two minds, you have a lower mind and a higher mind. And what happened was my higher mind traveled into that future. And when you do that, you go into your future self, physical body, everything, and you live out your life as if everything is normal, nothing is different. You will not remember your past in terms of who, like, you won't think, oh, I'm in the future now. Wow, this is cool, I'm in the future. You don't think that way. You will think normally and do the things you would do normally, right? It is only when the consciousness is withdrawn and goes back into the past does the awakening occur, meaning you awaken to the fact that you are in the future. And now you look around and you see the present moment, and you'll become extremely disoriented because it's a jolt that happened. And I remember for weeks and weeks after that, I was afraid it would happen again. And I was really nervous about it, because it was so disruptive of an event that you think you're living one life, and then suddenly you live in another life, and that time is different. Now, that is how time travel worked for our ancestors. They projected their consciousness into the future, into their future selves, and they were able to live in the future. And then it was only when they went back to the present time and day that they were consciously aware that they were in the future. Now, why are you not aware when you're in the future, that you are in the future? You know, that's a good question, and that's something we'll have to explore. Maybe it's a safety mechanism to prevent you from like getting the lottery numbers and coming back in time and playing the lottery then. Who knows? Because there is a maat factor, you know, to keep balance and order within things. Now, I've often said this too, and this is another important point that you have to get, that you live in a different space-time continuum than your friends. All right. So for example, me talking to you right now, you may be living in my past and I may be living in your future. We do not all live in the same present day. We don't. This is called time dilation. We know that time is contextual, or time is relative, according to Einstein, and that what changes it, or what has an effect on time, is gravity and velocity. So you have to understand that the distance that your friends are away from you and the gravity all work to create a time dilation effect where they are not living in the same time as you. They may be living in the past, your past, or your future. It's only when you come in contact with them do you bridge the space-time gap, and you now live in the same space-time continuum. All right. And the thing is, we don't understand reality 100% because the ruling elite keeps this information from us. They don't want us to understand the full scope that reality is not objective. We're all living our own individual reality. Do you understand what I mean? And we're all going through our own scenarios based on our belief systems. So with that point in mind, I want you to understand this. In the movie Back to the Future, you had Michael J. Fox get into a DeLorean, go into the future, and meet his future self. That is incorrect. Because if you were to build a time machine and go into the future, you would not be in the future because you got into a time machine to go into the future, so you could not meet yourself. But again, this is information they're putting out there to lie to us, to get us confused about how this process works. All right? And the whole idea of linear space and time is incorrect because we don't, that's only a product of our fourth dimensional existence. We come out of the inner planes. Okay, so you know in the beginning there was Neter or Neteru, God, source, Allah, Yahweh, whatever. And it was only the one. That was it. So when the one had a thought, it became two. And that became the individualization of things and objects. So the subjective realm looked back on itself, and in doing that, to understand itself better, it now became part of an objective realm where now you can look around and you see separation, individualization of things, people, places, objects. And it's an illusion of individualization because the reality is our true existence is one consciousness. We're all connected as one consciousness, not individual separate consciousnesses, though there are different levels, all right? As I talked about lower mind, higher mind, okay? And the higher mind is what makes the agreement prior to your birth of your experiences, your death, your pre-life agreement. Because your lower mind would never make an agreement to where you would be going through some tough times and turmoil. So the higher mind makes a decision for you, and higher mind is what? Tuhute, thought, okay? Now, with that said, the idea of going into a future or to the past is an erroneous concept created by left brain thinking. And left brain thinking has caused a lot of problems in the world, as you see in the medical industry, where we only treat the symptoms or you know, we don't look at the origin or the cause. We only treat the effects. It's like putting a Band-Aid on things because there's no right brain holistic homeopathic view of things, like, you know, the interconnectedness between things and understanding how you know, one sickness or one pain in my shoulder could be caused by my right toe, you know. It's that Cartesian left brain logic where it only sees a one-to-one correlation between things, but never an indirect correlation between things. That is the problem with the world we live in, which is why we can only think of time travel through a physical concrete machine and not through projection of consciousness into our future selves, because consciousness is immaterial. It is not fixed in any one point in space and time. With that said, it can go anywhere it wants. And also, when you understand that the reason why when we come from the subjective realm into the objective realm, then what we coming to is linear, and the reason why we're doing that is to experience process, beginning, middle, and end, and to have individualization so that we can interact with these things to gain experience, because the beginning of all, Neter, had infinite power, infinite wisdom, but no experience, because there was nothing for Neter or God to interact with. So the one became two and the two became three, the Holy Trinity. So that is the reason why you here. This is the reason why you exist, to have an experience, to interact, so Neter can understand itself, its infinite potential through the interactions and experience through the holographic projection, which we erroneously call reality, which is not reality. So linear brain says the future is a fixed point, and it's there. But the future is not really there, because there really is no future. There really is no past. The only thing that really exists is the present moment. You understand? And because all things exist in the same space at the same time. So when we talk about past life, your past life is going on right now in this space right here. All right? It's not going on in the actual past. It's going on right at this minute in the same space that you're occupying right now. Dinosaurs are walking around right here in this, It's only through different harmonic vibrations are we able to tune into those different parallel realities and experience them. So if you understand that, then you know that there is no fixed point in the future where we're all heading to, where it'll be a Buck Rogers or a Flash Gordon future where we'll have flying cars and we'll have pills that are meals. That's not real. And the reason for that is because that's a linear left brain erroneous thought process. When you understand that you are consciousness, and when you understand that space and time collapse upon each other, and that all things exist in the same space and time, and that all things are one, consciousness can go anywhere because there's nowhere to go. It is in all places at the same time, experiencing all things. Only left brain would write, oh, you have to go this way, or you have to go that way. That's stupid. Doesn't make sense. Just like space. Space, you don't go up or down. There's an infinite amount of directions you can travel in space. There's really no up and down. There's no right side up. That's a left brain concept. So that's one of the things that you have to think about. And this brings me to the grandfather paradox. So the idea is you travel, you get in a machine, you travel to the future, you meet your grandfather, right? And let's say you were to meet him, he was on a cliff, you push him off the cliff, he dies. So therefore, then you would never exist. So you go back to, if you were to go back to present day or whatever, you could not exist. So if you pushed your grandfather off the cliff, and which you would never be born, so you couldn't really even be there to push him off the cliff, because that you ceases to exist. So it's a paradox. You know what I mean? And the reason is because it's a paradox is because of the left brain thinking can't resolve that, because the reality is, there is no there is no point in where you're going to in the future, and there's no point in where you're going to in the past. It all exists simultaneously as one, but more importantly, as infinite possibilities. So in the model that I'm telling you is that when you go into the future, you are going into a probable future, not a fixed future. You understand? And let's say, for example, if you were to travel to meet your grandfather, push him off a cliff, and you wanted to travel back to your present time and day, you could not. You would go to another possible past, So there are infinite possibilities. And the future that you will get to is the one that emotionally you're close and tied to at the present moment, because it could change. The example I gave previously, early in the year, was when the elections between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And I said that, you know, in this future where we are now, Trump won. But there is a future where Hillary won, and that those individuals who are emotionally tied to Hillary exist in that future. And it's coinciding and going on at this present moment. So with all that said as the backdrop, let me talk about the idea of traveling to the future. Again, as I said, you know, you're going to a future where you're most tied to emotionally and based on your belief system. There are several individuals on the internet who have claimed to travel to the future and met themselves, which they're lying. You know, again, the global elite, the government puts out this information. You know, I've even heard some really crazy racist stuff about, like, I went to the future and there were no black people, there were no Asians. You know, well, you know, that could be possible because he's going through a probable future that's close to his emotional destiny, his emotional belief system. And so if there's infinite possibilities, and that possibility could exist that he is going into, all right? But, you know, there was one footage you can find where this guy says he goes through, he was going under his kitchen sink and opened up this wormhole, which took him into the future where he met his future self. And as I explained before, you can't go into the future like that physically and meet your future self, because if you've gone to the future, there is no future for you. You know, you're going through the future through that wormhole. Okay, so you can't meet yourself. Again, the left brain creates these paradoxes and these complications, and it convolutes. So, and Einstein said it best: you can't solve a problem using the same mindset that created it. So the idea is, if you're looking to try these techniques to project yourself into your consciousness into the body of your future self, is the way this is done is that we have present day control of time. It's, you know, we do have control of time. But, you know, again, they laugh this off. They tell us, oh, you know, don't think about that too much. It's nothing. It's nothing. But it's the trance state or alternate state of consciousness. So you do it, or we call it daydreaming. You do it all the time. When you're walking down the street and you start to drift off thinking about something else, and before you know it, you walk 5 blocks and you say, wow, I remember walking 5 blocks. You know, how did I do that? You know, it's losing yourself within the moment. Or some people call it getting immersed in the flow. So that is a means of the right brain shifting and connecting with the right, I'm sorry, the left brain shifting and connecting with the right brain, and the right brain is your stargate to any time period. So when you connect to that right brain, you can then project yourself into any point in, you know, any point that you want to go to. And you can will yourself to do it. It's very similar to the near-death experiences. You ever hear people say, well, I had a near-death experience and I went out of my body and I actually saw myself, you know, lying passed out or in an ambulance or in a hospital. That's similar. That's very similar to it, you know. And the trick is reproducing that effect of where what you have to do is that you have to lose yourself in a particular moment. So when you're losing yourself and you're not consciously aware of what you're doing at the present time, you then open the gateway to traveling through different worlds or different futures. You know, and remember, it's all existing simultaneously, so you're not actually going into a future. No, you're just accessing a possible probability of a future, or if you want to call it that. And I'm using these, I'm not going to be using, I'm trying not to use, you know, terms from physics, and just try to talk in layman's terms so you can really grasp this, you know. So it's called losing yourself or going into a trance state. And this has to be done to the umpteenth degree. You have to totally become immersed in the lack of thought, meaning you don't have a thought in your mind. You're not thinking about anything. Your mind is clear. You're in that Zen state, that state of oneness with all. And that state allows you to project yourself now you into the future self. Now you don't think, oh, I'm going to project myself. I don't know. That will ruin it, because you're not supposed to have even one thought. That is the one. That's what they call oneness. You know, that's the state of at rest, at peace. Amen. Or the hidden state is what the ancient Egyptians called it. That allows you to do a bunch of great things. You can heal yourself when you get into that state. You can astral project and see yourself, or go into different countries or different states and see things. It's called remote viewing, and the CIA did a lot of experiments with that. So accessing this power within you is something you do every day, because you lose awareness of time when you become, I mean, when you're working, you work in an office, or you ever get so involved in what you're doing that time just flies, and you're wondering where the time went. Or you fall in love with somebody, and you're like, wow, we've been together 6 months so far. Wow, I can't believe it just flew by, or whatever. So that's the, we don't pay attention to that. Those are little indicators that, hey, you have power. That's not insignificant. That is a hint and a sign of something greater that you have within you. If you learn to cultivate it and access it, you can use that to travel to the future, to experience your future, a possible future. But again, you have to believe this is possible, because we're living in a computer system, which is a mind control system. It's an Orwellian system, 1984, that wants to control us through doublespeak, to words, and say, you know what? No, that can't happen. That's impossible. And they ridicule you, and they ostracize you to the point of, I don't want to do it. There's a saying in journalism where a writer comes to his publisher with an idea, and his publisher says, no, that we can't publish that. And the next time the writer comes with a different idea, and the publisher says, no, that will never fly. But anyway, a different level set. And the final level is when the writer doesn't even come up with the idea anymore. He censors himself before going to his publisher. He says to himself, it'll never work, because my publisher will say no. And that creates these parameters around you to where you are the dog in a cage. Even though the cage has been removed, you still think there's a cage there. You're free, but you don't know that you're free. So you've created this wall around you that limits who you are. We're told we're just human. No, we're not. We're God men, we're God women. We're not just human, And just to give you just another example of how the left brain has screwed things up, when we look at evolution, we talk about evolution because we talk about that, we're evolving to a better, higher state of man. And we're moving toward the direction, and 200 years from now and 500 years from now, we'll look totally different. There is no such thing as evolution or evolving. You cannot just evolve. Ma'at tells us that there's a form and function, that everything is interdependent upon each other. Evolution was about adaptation. You're adapting to your environment so you can survive. This is something that that consciousness, or nectar, or God, created within us to allow us to survive. We adapt, which is why some people are white, some people are black, because they have adapted to a climate. One adapted to the cold, harsh climate. Another adapted to a warm, hot climate by developing melanin. The other one lost vitamin D, doesn't produce much vitamin D. So this is what it's all about. There is no, we're so caught up on this linear process and this left brain to where we are become so dumb and stupid that all we can think of are things in terms of concrete, and things are what is directly related in Cartesian logic, and it creates these diametrically opposing ideas. It creates this Hegelian dialectic to where we're fighting against things that we think are the enemy. We're trying to move to a future that we think is a predetermined future that already exists, where it's starships and transporters and phasers. No, that does not exist. And we think that reality is absolute, it's objective, that it's one reality, and we all experience the same reality. No, we do not all experience the same reality. No, you do bring people into your reality when you meet them, but when you're not with them, they are experiencing a different space-time continuum. They may be in the past, they may be in the future, but they're not experiencing the same reality as you are. And this is the disturbing thing that we are afraid to get a grip on, because we're taught that things are one way, solid, concrete, and it can be no other way. So it's very disruptive to you, your spirit, to now have to look at things in a totally different way and say to yourself, you know what, I don't really know what's going on. I thought I knew what the world was about, but I was lied to. And now I'm beginning to think it's different. And as I pull the layers back on this onion, there are more layers and more layers and more layers and things I don't know. And I'm realizing that it's complex. So what I'm trying to tell you is that everything you've been told is a lie based on polarization in the left brain. You have to get out of that and start thinking in a very different way and start utilizing the powers that we have within us. The powers to travel through time, travel to any point that we want, to experience unlimited alternate universes and possibilities. You know? So let's embrace the unknown. Let's embrace the fact that, you know what, things may not be the way we were told. And once we embrace that, we become more than what we are. We become the best versions of ourselves. We become Osiris. You know, Osiris he's known as the uniter of Upper and Lower Egypt. He is the one who has achieved a high spiritual level. He is the Buddha. All right, so think about that. You have any questions about this time travel reality? Please feel free to put them in the comment section. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. And as always, I appreciate you tuning in. And this is Kasakma Keparu. Until my next broadcast, Amun Ra.